Hi YouTube, Engineer World 100. It's another Porsche 996 Turbo video coming to you today, and I've been in a lot of discussions with a few of you, quite a few of you, on some of the forums and on a lot of Facebook groups about bushings for our transmission. And there's a lot of debate in both camps about stay OEM. Some people love solids, some people love semi-solids. So today, I'm going to install these in my car, test them out, and give my impressions. Now, I'm no expert on suspensions, I'm no expert on bushings, okay? I'm not even trying to pretend. But I did go online and watch a lot of videos and read a lot of documentation from people who are. And the takeaway is, I'm not going to get real technical, it's a bunch of, reams of data, but the takeaway that I got is that there's three really important components that are extremely simple, that are often overlooked, that will determine whether or not your experience is what you want or what you anticipated by changing your transmission bushings. So number one, and I don't even know if this is the most important, but I think it is. The most important is the durametric hardness, how soft the material is or hard the material is for the type of driving you want to do. So me personally, I want to drive on the street. I don't track the car, but it's a little bit, I wouldn't say aggressive, I would say spirited driving. Okay, I drive nicely. I try to abide by most of the traffic laws most of the time. And I have felt on occasion my transmission and my engine moving. I can feel them swaying under there, and it causes me not to really to miss a gear, but there's a little clump. It's a little hesitant to go into gear sometimes under hard acceleration or hard cornering. So I wanted to reduce some of that movement by adding some semi-solid transmission mounts. Now, a few years ago, I added semi-solid engine mounts, and that helped. Okay, the durametric value for my engine mounts is 75A, and the durametric hardness of these is even softer at 60A. So the three things that are most important, okay, number one, like I was saying, number one is the durametric hardness. Okay, number two, once you go to install these, strangely enough, and I noticed this not being done on some of the videos I watched, you want to make sure that both, not just the actual bushing themselves, but also the carriage or wherever you're putting it is extremely clean. You want to make sure the surface is clean. Okay, clean, clean, clean. And third, but not last, and not last but not least, can't even talk, I'm very excited. You want to make sure you use the proper lubricant for the material you're installing. Some lubricants will deteriorate the type of bushing you put in. Okay, so mine are polyurethane. Okay, and for these, they have a lot of silicone in them too. I use prothane, and there's silicone in the prothane grease that adheres to the bushing and creates a smooth interface between the bushing and the carriage. Okay, and it removes all. There's squeaking, and there's sometimes it's kind of a grinding noise. There's a lot of weird noises that can happen between a bushing and the carriage if there isn't proper lubrication. And I experienced that with my BMW, and during my track days, I put urethanes on my Porsche, my BMW, and it really helped a lot on the track. And it also quieted down significantly when I put prothane on those, because when I first put them in, I didn't put the prothane on, and I didn't know why they were so noisy. So I took them back out. Once I found out, I put prothane on the bushings. Boom, quiet as a mouse. Okay, so I don't know whether or not these are going to be quiet or not, and I don't know whether or not I'm going to like them, because there's more things besides just noise. There's harshness. You're going to feel more of the road because the engine is more solidly mounted to your frame and it's transmitted to the cabin. There could be more vibration because of the same thing. This is harder because OEM mounts are not only softer, but they're not even continuous. There's holes in there, so it's basically hanging in the middle. It can move around a little bit. So you know, if I don't like these, I'm going to take them back out. So you're getting 100% authentic, honest impressions from me. I am not sponsored in any way, shape, or form. All of my opinions are going to be mine, and if I do not like these, I will tell you. And if I really don't like them, they're going to come back out. And the recommendation for me has been go with OEM 997 upgraded, you know, bushings, because they're better than the 996 OEM. And so that's exactly what I'm going to do. So now, without further ado, if you want, I'll come in real close, let you get a good look at these. Then we're going to go out and put them in the car. And I'm going to take some driving footage on the same street, at the same speed, at the same volume. When I installed my steering wheel, there was a bunch of driving footage in that. So I'm going to use some of that footage for the before installation of these. And then I'm going to probably put on, if I can remember, put on a yellow t-shirt. So when I switch back and forth between OEM and aftermarket propane, or the polyurethanes, you can tell which is which. And then I'll do some driving, after these are in, I'll do some driving on the same street, and we'll compare sounds. And I'll give you my impression. It's probably hard to tell in video. Sometimes, a lot of times, the sound doesn't get picked up as well, so you can't really tell. But you're going to get honest impressions from me, whether or not I like these. So if I like these, they're going to get rave reviews. And if I don't, if they're noisy, they're loud, they're going to come out, I'm going to rat them out. All right, so let's go to the car. Let's install them real quick. Pop down that carriage. Pop out the OEM. I think I'll press them out. I'm going to get a screw and press them out. And then pop these in, put it back in, hit the road. All right, so let's go. All right, so as you can see, we already have it up on the left, and we are going to remove this undercovering and the 4 mount bolts that hold the carriage onto the car. We're not going to go ahead and show this because it's boring. I'll let you see the 4 bolts that you use to take off the carrier, but I know we just want to press those bushings out, put the new ones in, test drive it, and get to the final answer. So let's get right into it. Alright, so we got those undercovers removed, and just like that, she is naked. So we can go over here, and I'll show you the 4 15 millimeter. One is a bolt, one is a nut. There's one on each side. There's 4. So going up here, and that is the nut. Okay, right there. It has to come off. The bolt is right here. That's on the left. On the right, you have the exact same thing. 15 millimeter bolt. And if you look up in here, you can see a 15 millimeter nut. And then, of course, on either side, we have the 16 millimeter bolt in the bushing itself, one on this side, and ta-da, one on this side. Why they made them 16 instead of 15 like everything else, I don't know. But anyway, we'll pop that out, get it on the bench, and remove those bushings. All right, so it should come out nice and easy now. There you go. See? Ha ha ha. We have carriage. All right, so to get the old bushings out, I'm just going to cut the rubber part first. So hang on, one little piece of metal. There it is. All right. See, sorry, I went up above. So here it is. All right, I got one cut out. So let's get this. See if I can press out this part here. Should be able to. This looks like a big fella here. Get the big fella. Alright, so these big old nuts I got here are 32 millimeter. So I got a 32 millimeter boxing wrench. Put on the whole of this. And then I got a 32 socket. This on. See what happens. Alright, finally got it lined up. So here it goes in. There it goes. Hey, looky. Alright. There it is. So we'll do the other one. And that way I didn't damage anything. Nice and clean. And then we'll wash it really good with Dawn, scrub it down. Then we'll grease up the new bushings. And they should slide in like butter by hand. Alright, so I'll do the other side. And then we'll put it back in the car. But I'm going to clean it, and there we go. All right, and both are empty there. There you go. So I'll clean this up real good. Then we'll lubricate the inside of the carriage and the outside of the bushings, and they should press in no problem. All right, so this is a really important part. I cleaned it once, just making sure there's no little bits of grease or anything that got on these surfaces, because I want my surfaces clean, and then I want my surfaces lubricated well with Prothane. So I'm going to put the Prothane on both surfaces, the housing and the bushing. Inside out. So you want to, put a nice amount, but don't go crazy. Yeah, it goes in nicely. And then I can probably just push it in. Let's see. Look at that. Come on. See, these guys are using clamps and vices and trying to force them in. Nope. You're doing it wrong. And look at this. I even installed it with the insert already in, which makes it even tighter. If you do the insert after, this is going to be easier because it'll squeeze in more. So, there we go. Looks good. Looky. Look at that. Insert in. So let's see if this is any easier. Oh man, yeah, it is a tiny bit easier. Not that it was hard before. Now let's see if this is hard. Maybe this is hard because now there's not as much give. It's about the same. I mean, maybe it's a little harder. It's about the same. No, it's a little tiny bit harder. It's a little bit harder. So what would I recommend? And just push it. Yeah, it's easier if you put the insert in first. This is a little tough. So I would do that and then put your bushing in after the insert. This one is harder than this one was. So we learned something. That's good. It's doable, but it's a little harder. A lot harder, actually. Get that all the way in. And then we can reinstall. As simple as that. Now we can do our test drives and figure out whether we have to do this all again if I don't like it. Because if I don't like it significantly enough, these are going to eventually come back out. So let's go put it in the car. Alright guys, I guess we're going to do a nice little road test. This is where the rubber meets the road, pun intended. So I'm going to do it in 3 parts, I guess. Do a little bit of local driving, like you drive around town, and then I'll do some driving on bumpy road, not as smooth as normal. And then I think I'll do a little bit on the freeway. Also, I have a stock exhaust, so I do hear additional engine noise. So you have an aftermarket exhaust and yours is already as loud as you want, then I can see how the additional noise from that could be more than you would want. But my exhaust is stopped. Sometimes actually it's too quiet, hard to tell when to shift because I can't hear the motor, if there's music on or anything, I can't even hear it. So this actually helps. So first impressions, I do hear a little bit more whirring. It seems like I can hear the engine, and I do feel a little bit of vibration in the seat. It's minor. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say it's like a 3. So compared to before, if before was a 3, OEM was a 3, this is like a 5. It's like a 5. So in driving around town, it's about a 5. So let's do a little bit of, not really freeway driving, but I'm going to drive down a street where we have a nice straight stretch where you do like 50, 60 miles an hour, and we'll see what it sounds like if we were to drive out of town. So in driving around the neighborhood, I can feel it a little bit more, and I can hear it a little bit more. It's not even remotely bad, and I honestly like it. I actually like it better. It makes me kind of feel more like I'm driving, you know, a sports car as opposed to a Camry. But there is more. You know, there's no denying there's a little bit more noise. But when I say a little bit, I mean it is a little bit. I mean, if I had music on or the windows down, I probably couldn't even hear it. It's negligible. Okay, it's not even bad. If you're really worried about that, then you need to buy a camera. So, or they didn't do it right. Whoever did your install didn't do it right. Either didn't select the correct durometric, or they didn't correct, you know, clean things right, or they didn't lubricate things right. Something wasn't done right. It's really gross because this is extremely minor. Okay, I'm on, see what I'm doing, 55, 56. It seems like I can hear the motor a little more, but it's no worse than around town. It's not much louder. I don't know if it's picking up on the mic, but you can hear the motor. You can hear it, and you can feel a little bit of vibration. I feel it in the emergency brake handle. I don't feel it in the stick, ironically. The gear shifter, I don't feel it in that. But I feel it in the emergency brake, and I feel it in my seat. A little bit in my seat. Other than that, it's almost the same. When I'm idling, it's the same as stock. I don't hear anything. Driving around the neighborhood, a little tiny bit. And then up to speed, it's about the same as around the neighborhood. Now I'm gonna go on a bumpy road and see if I get any additional jarring or additional noise, any kind of discomfort. See if it's obnoxious, bearable, or negligible. Here we go. I know that this road has some little bumps on it. So, when they're doing construction here, they're doing slow. Thank you. And here we go, a little undulation. Bump there. So let's see what this road feels like. And I think, I know it's not something I'm gonna, oh my God, I can't stand it, I'm taking those out. But somebody did make mention, a couple people made mention that over time, sometimes they get louder. Or sometimes, if they're OEM, when they're a little bit loud initially, given a few hundred miles, they tend to quiet down. So time will tell about that kind of stuff. But I will say this, I put urethanes in my BMW before I even bought the Porsche. I've had the Porsche for over 10 years now. I have not serviced them. I put them in and I put Prothane grease on them, and I've heard not a peep out of them since. So there's that piece. So on this little road with little bumps and stuff, I don't think it's any harsher
do not feel as much movement of the transmission, although I have not really pushed it yet. And my shifts do feel crisper. They're not a whole lot. It's not like, oh my god, it's so buttery. It wasn't bad before, but it feels like it goes into gear more readily. If that makes any sense. It just kind of goes in a little bit better, and I'm thinking over time I'll find that it goes in more consistency. It just shifts right in now. Whereas before I had a little bit of hesitation at times. So we go first, second, third. It just clicks right in now. It just clicks right in. So the shifting's better. That's what I really wanted. The noise is minimal. There is some added noise, but it's not much. So my position is apples to apples. Full disclosure, my car does have a 997 short shifter with the function first upgrade of the bushings in it. Additionally, I have urethane motor mounts, which are 75A durometer. Done my function first. I mean, not function first, NYPPD, but they're out of business now. And the reason I went with them and their 75A was because there was so much more polyurethane in their mounts than any other. Volumetrically speaking, there was more. They're thicker, so they absorb more vibration. They're a little bit more dampening. The thinner it gets, the closer it gets to the metal, the more harsh it's going to be. The less it's going to have the dampening effect. So that's my setup. I have OEM cables, okay, and the only thing I'm noticing is noise. I can hear the engine a little more. I have a little bit more vibration in my emergency brake lever, and at some resonances, yeah, when I'm accelerating, I can feel a little bit of vibration in the seat. You have to be consciously trying to feel for it to feel it, though. It's not something that's intrusive. It's very slight, and I'm feeling it because I'm trying to feel anything different. I'm searching, scanning for any little minor difference. Well, it's not at all bothersome. I like it better. It's enjoyable. And I will not be taking these out unless something dramatic happens and they start making a lot of noise. But my final answer is 2 thumbs up. I'm keeping them. I love them. And I'll give my final synopsis back in the office. Give my final word. Bottom line, though, is they're great. I think if you put them in correctly, they'll function for you perfectly. Unless you're really super sensitive and you probably shouldn't be driving a Porsche anyway, then don't put them in. Nobody's saying shit. If you don't like any kind of vibration or any kind of engine noise, get a Tesla. Whatever floats your boat. Alright guys, that's it for the road test. Thank you for tuning in. I'll give my final word in the office.
Okay, so we did the drive. This is my final word on the polyurethane bushings for the transmission mount on the 996 Turbo. Everything always has to be apples to apples. Bear that in mind. So I'm going to address the NVH, noise, vibration, and harshness. And I'm going to address harshness first. Harshness for me was actually reduced. You're like, how is that possible? I'll explain. Prior to installing the bushings, I was experiencing movement with my engine and my transmission. Afterwards, there wasn't any. And I didn't experience any additional harshness on a bumpy road or on hard acceleration or on corners. So for me, it was reduced. However, bear in mind, say for example, if you have coilovers, you have a stiffer suspension, you have an exhaust that's aftermarket. These will all contribute to harshness or loudness or vibrations that will be amplified when you add these polyurethane bushings. And especially if you add polyurethane bushings that are of a harder durometer than 68 like mine. Okay, so vibration was the next one I wanted to cover because I did feel a small increase in vibration. However, in order to feel it, I had to look for it. it wasn't intrusive. It's not something I could detect without feeling around, and I found some vibration in my emergency brake handle, a little in my seat, and a little in the gas pedal under hard acceleration over 4,000 RPMs. So vibration was negligible. Okay. Now noise. Final answer. Noise was the most increased of all. Even though it was small, it was still the largest increase. For me, with a stock exhaust, with a stock suspension, okay, and I have very soft motor mounts, 75A durometer motor mounts. For me, the noise is, I wouldn't say negligible, but it's very, very small. On a scale of 1 to 10, say, like I said in the car, if OEM is 3, these are like a 5, and under hard acceleration, I would say maybe even up to maybe a 6. Not even a 7, just between 5 and 6, additional engine noise under hard acceleration. And when I'm just driving normal, it's almost undetectable. The difference is almost undetectable. You have to fish for it to notice a difference between before and after. So for me, it worked out great. But for you, always try and bear in mind that it needs to be apples to apples. You need to say, okay, I'm going to add this to my car. Do I have an aftermarket exhaust? Do I have, coilovers that are stiff? And what's your driving style and what's your temperament? If you track your car, you're not going to notice a difference. If you're a spiritual driver like me, you enjoy it. I enjoy the added vibration, the added noise, the slight, difference of the engine sound. But was it significant? Was it a lot? Is it unbearable? Absolutely not. Would I do it again? Yep. I would do it again. Now, if these ever wear out, I might go and try the 997s just so I could try them and see what they're like. But after those, I might go back to these. It's that negligible. It's not bad. This is my experience with my car setup. You have to look at the details. So many people I talk to, I ask them, well, what's your durometer? I don't know. Well, do you have coilovers? I don't know. I think the previous owner might have put some on. Let me check. So you have to know all of the specifics of what you're fixing to add this modification to determine what kind of outcome or result you're going to have. Your result may not be like mine if your car is not like mine. So, from my perspective, they're an awesome upgrade. I hope they last. The ones on my BMW have been on for over 10 years. I love them. They make zero noise. So, with that being said, let me cut this long-winded video to an end. Let me go edit it, and have a nice day.